everyone. I am introducing you to so many people this year, and this one is my favorite one so far. My guest today is Laiken Podrebarac, and also Yoshi is with her today. And if you watch the YouTube version, you'll be able to see what Yoshi looks like. But Laiken was my student from the time she was a freshman in high school till when she was a senior, and I was her counselor. And she also now has graduated with her bachelor's degree from Washburn University. And I did an episode a few weeks, well, probably a few months ago now, about being neurodivergent and navigating college. And I thought she was the perfect person to talk to us about it because she was able to do it. So, hello, Laiken. I'm so glad you're with us today.
Hey.
I know
I
this
was
will be a
like,
little bit weird.
did you see my little face, my little like side eye, like when you said she's my favorite? I was like, stop.
Well, you knew that totally. So Lakin, we met a long time ago when you were probably 14-ish years old. You were a freshman. And your mom came to me at the beginning of the year and said, "Hey, we need to make sure that Lakin has different accommodations in the classroom." You did not have an IEP or a 504, and I don't think you ever did. Is that right?
I don't think that's a good question. I don't know if I ever used it, if I did have it.
Yeah,
I kind of just went through the same way
right.
everybody else did. I didn't end up needing many accommodations.
Yes. Well, and the thing, since my audience is parents and young people, I'm going to kind of try to talk to both things. But as parents, just as long as you let the school know that you do know that there's some things that maybe would be helpful, like for Lakin, and I don't know if you remember this because it's been a long time for you. Um, One of the things that you really needed was breaks sometimes from the day. And you usually chose a break during your choir class because you weren't like missing curriculum, you were just missing the practice of choir. And sometimes you would spend the entire hour in my office just doing digital art because that was something that really calmed you. Do you remember doing that?
I do. I do. I do remember occasionally taking breaks. I also remember that my choir teacher was dope. I loved him. Uh, so I did actually enjoy the class. Like I had terrible stage fright, so I couldn't like perform, but like I enjoyed the class in the
Hmm.
classroom setting. So I was
Hmm.
like,
Well, and
I
then
wonder
you're,
what Mr. White's doing now.
I know, well, maybe he'll listen to this podcast. Um, and then you went to a tech school that was connected to our high school your junior and senior year. So when you went there, that was a little bit different than high school, where they were probably not as easy to give you accommodations or modifications as the high school was. How did that work for you?
So weird disclaimer. It's kind of odd. There's a big disconnect from like you go to high school and everyone's like, it's really strict and they're like, in college, they're gonna be harsher. You gotta be careful. But here's the thing. As soon as I got to tech and college, I had maybe one or two teachers that were like that, but the rest of them were just like, I'm a little tired and I kind of want to just watch a movie. So do you guys want to do that today? Like they were very like accommodated. Like it's a bit of a well, I can't say the same for every university because every university is different, but at least
Mhm.
where I went to school, all I really had to do was walk up to a professor like before or after class and be like, hey, I'm struggling with this and this. Could you please do this for me, or could I have like this time? And they were typically like, yeah, for sure.
Oh, that's
College is
great.
stressful. Go
Hmm.
vibe. Like when my lizard died, my professors gave me 3 days off, which sounds like a lot to mourn a lizard, but I was mourning a lizard. Um, so like they did not, as long as you get your work done, um, and as long as you're keeping up with the class, typically they're pretty like mellow jello
That's
about the whole
wonderful.
thing.
I'm so glad
It's
to
a
hear that.
weird myth. It was a weird, like, it was a big old culture shock to walk into college and they're just like, they lied to you. And I'm like,
Yep.
oh, great.
Well, I do know that when middle schoolers would come to the high school, they were like, oh, they said it was going to be so hard and terrible, but it's not. And so maybe we all try to make kids think that the next level is so much worse when really it isn't. And I did have the same experience. I didn't really learn differently than other students, so that wasn't the problem. But when I went to college, it actually seemed easier to me than high school.
Yeah, because in college they typically like leave you. Oh my God, college is an autistic kid's dream,
Oh, good.
literally. Because you go to a lecture maybe once or twice a week, and then you get the notes, you get the information, and then you can just be on your own and do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Which for a lot of kids, for me personally, that was the way I learned best. I would either need to talk, like if I was struggling with something, lectures weren't for me. I would just need to talk to somebody one on one and have it explained to me, and then that's it. And it's way easier to get to that in college. Like a lot of colleges have like tutoring areas, like in Washburn downstairs, there was an area where you could go, or was it downstairs or upstairs? I think it was both. But there were areas in the library specifically dictated for like different subject tutors that would be there from like certain hours, and you could just go and be like, I don't know how to do this. Like,
That's great that you sought that out. Now, was it hard to find that those people were available, or, how did you find out that you could go get help?
oh, well, initially I just kind of asked my professors, like if, or I would just ask my friends, like, a lot of the times the curriculum I was struggling with was the stuff that I wasn't, and this is also very phenomenal because a lot of autistic people have hyperfixations and are very interested in the careers they're going into.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the things that I struggled with were prerequisites, things that did
Mm-hmm.
not interest me and were hard for me
Mm-hmm.
to like. Don't get me wrong, I got A's in everything because I was, I got the TISM brain, but um, the thing about prerequisites is that everyone's taking them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Everybody has to take it. So when you've got a friend group in college, because you are going to meet lots of people that also don't care and have the same hyperfixations as you. Like you
Mm-hmm.
will find a group of people, I promise you. It's nothing like high school where there's like you look around and you're like, those kids are cool and those kids are not. It's not like super black and white the way that high school tends to be. There's
Mm-hmm.
everybody and nobody cares what anybody else is doing. We're minding our own business. So you will find a group of people that
Oh,
you
that's
do like
great.
eventually. Like it might take you a little bit because you got to branch out, like, and kind of like seek out those like resources. But there is like clubs, like sometimes you just meet somebody in your class. You will meet somebody, and there's a good chance that they will introduce you to somebody. And then that person might have taken the same class as you and know
Mm-hmm.
exactly what to do.
Yeah.
So eventually you will find your way to that resource.
Mm-hmm. That's great
It's
advice.
like leading a horse to water, and then the horse talks to the mermaid in the water to tell him where the fish is. I don't know.
I love it. Okay, so did you live at home the whole time? Did you live on campus? Both? How did that work?
I lived at home because it was cheaper, and the end goal for my family was they didn't want me to have debt,
Mm-hmm.
which is great because I don't.
That's wonderful.
What are you doing, sir? He just tried to yeet himself off my leg. We'll get up there. This is not the place. But it was cheaper to live at home, especially since campus is like a 15-minute drive every
Mm-hmm.
single day. And also, it was just, I've always lived at home, so I wanted to stay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, especially during a transition like that.
Yeah,
You
that's
want
what
to
I was
be
going to
the
say. Do you think
person.
it would have been harder if you were, in a new environment, such as living on campus and the new part of school?
I think that it would have been an adjustment that would have. Let me think about this response. So The thing is, when I adjust to something, I can adjust to something eventually, and then that becomes my new routine. But it would have been a hindrance on the beginning of my college like career thing.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been like a oh, I'm gonna be a few months behind because my brain is still a little scattered.
Mm-hmm.
I would have caught up, but it would have been like a little bit more of a like a jarring like
Do you think that
thing.
there is something on campus for kids who might be in that position, though, where they have to live on campus because maybe their family's too far away from school and yet they need more time to transition? Did you ever hear of anything like that that somebody could find on their campus?
There was a lot of this was quite cool actually. There was a mental health service in, I think it was Henderson. I could be wrong. I feel like it was Henderson, but I'm also
Mm-hmm.
I
I think that
haven't been.
sounds right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But they have students there studying psychology and mental health, and so like a student could come and help you, like, or they'll watch one of their professors talk to you, um, and you can like just basically vent the like a lot of the problems that you have um, can be solved, not solved per se, but like it helps to talk and just vent to your friends
Mm-hmm.
about frustrations you're having, because
Mm-hmm.
part of the joys of being like overstimulated and out of your comfort zone is that you don't know how to express it, so expressing it to somebody and then having yourself like kind of validated and like, yeah, I know that's hard, let me know if you need help, and your friends are just show up with some soup or something.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. Well, and it sounds like you had
Yeah.
great friend groups and friendships, even though you were at home, you still were enjoying your friends on campus and meeting them and doing things with them, even though you didn't live there. So that's an opportunity if students are living at home and going to school. It sounds like there's ways to have a lot of fun with your friends anyway.
Oh yeah, we would do, I had a variety. I had one friend group, and then I had a bunch of separate friends. Um, which comes because I, don't filter yourself in college. Let find the people that are gonna like you for the
Mhm.
version of you that's unfiltered. Because trust me, once you like actually start hanging out with them normally, like and regularly, trust me, they're gonna figure you out eventually. So it's best to be upfront and just unfiltered.
Mhm.
Um, like the first time I have a very good friend. She's lovely. Her name's Sarah. Um, the first time she met me, she walked into the anime club, and it was held when everyone was out of class and in a room where like it was just us. So she walked in, and the first thing she saw was me standing up on the table, aggressively pointing at one of the other club members, and just, I was being loud. And I, I don't want to swear on your podcast, but I was swearing at him. Not because I was mad, but because I was messing around with him.
Mhm.
But I was like aggressively like, ah! And she looked, and she was very baffled. She was like, hello. She was almost afraid. She didn't know what to do.
Oh my
And then
goodness.
she ended up being one of my best friends throughout college.
It sounds like she was brave to choose you for a friend after that initial.
Oh, oh, yeah. Trust me. Be yourself. Like, obviously, be appropriate when the time comes. And
Mhm.
like if you're in class, don't be standing on tables and screaming your head off. But like, I was messing around with friends, and she saw me messing around with friends, and she was like, you know what? I'm gonna take a chance on that.
Yeah, I love that. That's wonderful. Well, and you had mentioned right before we got started recording that you said you didn't mask well in school, in high school. And I'm assuming that means you were yourself and
Yeah.
and but you realize now, I don't know if you feel like you wished you would have been masking yourself more or you're glad you didn't, but it sounds like people didn't take offense to that. Like they see you now and they're like, "Oh, you were so funny in school."
Yeah, I have no regrets. I have none. I like I've run into a few, like I don't go out too often aside from working and, hanging out with my friends occasionally. So I don't like go around town often. I'm typically at home just chilling and doing my own thing. But the few times I have run into people from high school, they're typically like, I look back upon your presence fondly, and I'm like, glorious. I vaguely remember you. Like I think you were nice. I can't remember.
hmm Well, and it's sometimes, well, you had a large class too, which
I
makes a
got one
difference
year.
too. You wouldn't necessarily know everybody in your class because you had so many of them. So what's
That's
happening now with like job searching for jobs, or are you right now? And what kind of jobs are you thinking about?
so when I graduated, I wasn't really the final like semesters of my college life were kind of stressful because I was having like some trouble with my mental health, and it just ended up like it was hard for me to think about what I wanted to do. So
hmm
when I got out and I was done, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. I felt like I wanted to get into character design and like animation maybe, and possibly like comic like production, but I didn't know how to go about that.
hmm
So I basically spent a ton of time looking at jobs and applying for some of them, but the ones that like I don't really know how to go about like finding a job as a comic artist or something. So the jobs I was looking at were like for stuff like what my mom wants me to do with this thing. She wants me to make her a logo or a thingy for her like for the USD district, and then I'm doing like a Valentine's Day, not a Valentine's Day, an Easter card for this one lady tonight that I'm gonna send in to her. That's just kind of like my stepdad knows her, so she was asking if I could do some work for her.
hmm
Um, but those were the kinds of jobs I was doing. But also, I hadn't done a lot of that stuff since tech school because tech school on this episode of Can I Speak? Tech school was very hands-on. Like we used the software a lot, and we were like making logos all the time. So they'd give us the theme, we'd make a ton of logos, we'd have critiques and stuff. So it was very much like centered around graphic design. But in college, you got prerequisites, you got all that. So by the time I was doing like more graphic design classes near the end, those old stuff was very outdated. So I
mm
didn't really have much to go off of like portfolio wise. So I wasn't like sure how to go about getting any kind of job in that era either.
hmm
Um, so what my mom did, because I got real bummed out,
hmm
because I was also like the adrenaline like drop from finally getting out of college.
hmm
Um, it all just kind of hit at once, and then I ended up having to like I had to go to the doctor and get a new medicine because I was bummed. I was bummed. I was not having a good time. Um, it's working really well though. I like it.
Good.
But my
Seem
mom
good.
also got me a job. She didn't get me a job, but she asked me if I would be interested in a job as a para.
Mm.
Um, and so we talked about it a little more, and she got me shadowing somebody for a day. And I got there, and God, I can't even tell you. My mom described this as a war zone, and I got in there, and I was just like, this one kid was just like, "Let me hold your hand." I was
Oh.
like, "Word." And it was kind of hectic because it was like a Friday thing that they did.
hmm
But I've worked at a kid's place before. That was like a level 3 compared to the havoc I've seen. And that was apparently as crazy as it got. So I was like, this is nothing. So I ended up applying and getting a position as a para in the autism room. And I've got two
Love it.
kids that I'm specifically watching all the time, and they're very sweet. And I actually, and then I'm only going to be here until like the kids get out of school for the summer,
Mm-hmm.
so that I have time to think about like, and I needed a schedule,
Mm-hmm.
consistent schedule to
Mm-hmm.
get myself back on track.
We all do.
So, oh yeah, I was struggling, but now that I have that, I've actually got the like mental energy to think about what I want to do and how and like to build up a little bit of a portfolio by doing like side work and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm only going to be there, but I do want to volunteer after because I love the kids.
Yeah, I think you would be amazing at that. I'm so glad you're doing that. Well, I think,
I did these for my baby.
oh, those are great.
She, oh my god, do you know how I get her to learn? It's the goofy. Mom hates it. I draw a little face on my hand, like eye, mouth,
Oh, yeah.
lipstick, like
And your hand talks instead.
wow.
Mm-hmm.
She retains information that way, and I can't explain why, but it's the funniest thing. And my mom's like, "Stop, that's not normal." And I'm like, "I don't care, it's working."
Yeah, I was a special ed teacher for 6 years before I became a counselor, and I did everything. You want to do your math problems with a crayon? Let's do it. If you want to talk with your hand, let's do it. If you want to, whatever it was, let's just, because the purpose is learning, not how you're doing it, but that you actually learn something. And
Exactly.
so that's what you're allowing her to learn however she learns, which is great. Are there any digital apps that you use to kind of help you schedule your day or keep on track with things?
Not really. I kind of hyperfixate on scheduling, and I like know when everything is supposed to happen. I
Okay.
mentally like plan out every part of my day, like before it even happens.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, which drives my family kind of crazy because they're like, Ligon, I need you to do this thing, and I'm like, what time do you need me to do it? Tell me, tell me so that I know if I have to go shopping here or here. Tell me.
Well, and Lincoln, it's so funny, but that's exactly the way I am. And I wouldn't say, I think our brains probably work differently for sure, but I like to have times and I like to know when things are going to happen and then I plan them in my mind and when I have errands to do, I plan them in an order that makes sense, like the closest to me to the furthest or the furthest then back to the closest or whatever. I don't just go around willy-nilly randomly. And I'm so glad, other people are doing that too. And I think it just saves time. I think it just makes you more efficient in the things that you're
Yeah.
doing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So everyone should be doing these things. Well, I'm going to put your social media handles in my show notes because I want people to follow your art. It is so amazing. And I enjoy I think it's your Instagram, but maybe it's your TikTok. You have both, right?
I do.
And I think I'm following you on both of those, but whatever I see that comes up is so good and I just love what you're doing and I think there's got to be ways for people to see what you're doing and be interested in contacting you about what you do or I was thinking too as you were talking about jobs, if you've heard about Fiverr, um,
I have.
Upwork and things like that, where you could put some of your work and you wouldn't have to say I do logos or Easter cards, things that you're maybe not that interested in, but say I'm really interested in animation and here's some of my stuff and see if anybody, those are worldwide apps that people are looking at. Somebody could come across your stuff and say, oh, she'd be perfect for this new cartoon or this new anime thing we're doing or whatever. You never know. So I think you should
I would
totally do
really
that.
love to make a webtoon. I'd really love because I have, I showed you all my little characters when you
Oh,
came
they're so
over.
good.
I
Well,
want to finally do that.
do you know how to make the webtoon? Can you, just like people self-publish books, can you self-publish a webtoon and put it up and see what happens to it?
Yeah, there's literally an app called Webtoon where you can actually like post webtoons.
I think you should create your own at first because it probably is hard to break into that in that career. But I think if you put something out there, especially if it went viral or people were really into it, or all of a sudden got a lot of followers, I think people would pay attention like, oh, well, maybe I should hire her to do XYZ. So maybe, at first you're doing it for free, kind of, because you're just doing it because you're passionate about it. But people would see how amazing it is because it is amazing. So everyone, make sure you go and follow her stuff. Is there anything else you would want to tell the audience as far as what they should be thinking about, or anything that would be inspirational for them or for the parents that you think are helpful for people who have autism, or really any other thought processes or diagnoses that where they think differently?
I would say kids, there is a fine line between, like, I know that like a lot of people are going to be like, you got to act a certain way and you got to be like very like specific in certain situations. And to an extent that is true. There are some situations where, like, let me give you some obvious ones. Obviously, don't wear a party hat to a funeral. Like
Don't
that
wear a
kind of thing.
swimsuit to school.
Yeah, like there are some areas where it's like socially like expected for you to like be like acting a certain way or to rein in like certain things, but also I'm gonna be real. I've stimmed in the middle of like I've stimmed in the middle of class. My poor professor, like, do you know how weird it is to give a lecture and then suddenly I'm just like, wah! Like,
I was going to ask you
I
what you
don't
do to
know.
STEM. So it's actually a verbal, auditory. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes it's that. Like it's usually some variation of like some kind of weird like wah sound
Mm-hmm.
or like a clicking.
Mm-hmm.
Those are fun. Like that's not as much of a disruption. I'm saying don't do what I did to my poor friend and jump on a table and swear, obviously. Um, but those little like stims and like ticks you get, that's not. There's nothing wrong with you for that. That's
Mm-hmm.
just part of you, and
Yeah.
it's not gonna, I promise you, it's not as embarrassing or terrifying. Like people will usually be like, oh, what is that? And then if you're like, oh, that's just a tick or a stim, they're like, oh, sick. And then they leave you alone. They don't care anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like most people are gonna see your little stims or your little like happy like dances and be like just wonder what it is, and then when you tell them, they're going to be like cool, and they're not going to care.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
Just be authentic. Don't make yourself uncomfortable for the sake of like appearing normal, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
If there even is and I quote normal.
Right.
Sir, he wants to say hello.
Oh, hello, Yoshi. For the people who watch the YouTube video, you'll be able to see Yoshi saying hello to us. Do you have any advice for the parents? Is there some things that your parents did that were so amazing that you think other parents should model after when it comes to having a child that learns differently?
There are things that were done right and wrong. One, like something that my mom did super right. She got me like all those accommodations in case I needed it, and she was very involved, and that is very good. Like always make sure that you keep up with your kiddo and like make sure that they have the accommodations that they need, like whether that be a pair of headphones. My mom, oh my god, for this wore off eventually, but for the first like few years that I had my pair of headphones, I had a pair of black headphones that I loved and I could not take off. Otherwise, it felt like I felt naked.
Mm-hmm.
I would wear them everywhere. I'd put them on my head, which now looking back is a super, super autistic thing to do. I thought I just liked headphones, but no, that's a thing a lot of autistic people have, is a pair of headphones. But I remember I was very particular about the color for a few years. I grew out of it, obviously. Like I grew up a little bit more, and I some of those like stronger, like I need it to be this way, you'll grow out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I
And so was
remember
the good part was your mom allowed that and allowed you to only wear them or only have a certain color or whatever. She was good about that.
she went to bat when mine broke. We were going to the store and they're like, okay, so we have these colors. She goes, no, she wants this one. They need to be black. Like
Yeah.
I
Oh
was
my
like,
gosh.
eventually, like looking back, I would be like, Mom, it's fine, because I was also panicked because I was like, don't make a scene, Mom. But like looking back, I was like, I appreciate that you did care enough to be like, I need those black ones.
Yes,
But
definitely.
one thing, make sure that you also don't infantilize,
Mm,
and like make sure that you also understand that your kid like is going to have interests that maybe other kids might find strange, and your kid might get bullied.
mm-hmm,
That's the thing. Kids are mean. Kids are
mm-hmm,
bullies. Kids suck sometimes. Um, and sometimes parents will go out of their way to like stop your kid from doing a certain behavior or wearing a certain thing or looking a certain way to avoid them getting picked on.
mm-hmm,
But the thing about autism is that it wins no matter what. It doesn't go away. There's
mm-hmm.
nothing that you can do about it. It's going to come out eventually. You can shove it down there as far as you want, but it's going to keep coming out until eventually your kid's old enough and you can't push it down anymore, and they're going to just do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Point being, it's better to let your kid, like, obviously don't let your kid go to school like buck naked dancing on the table.
Right.
But like if your kid has like an eccentric fashion choice that they like, or like they like to do their makeup a certain way, or if they like have a certain activity or like happy stim that they do that you think somebody might make fun of them for, it's better to be supportive and like love them anyway
Mm-hmm,
than it is to tell them that those things are wrong and going to get them made fun of, because
mm-hmm.
then that's your I think the biggest job you can have as a parent is to be the safe space for your kid.
Yes.
Make sure that they know that even if other people are being mean, like you're always going to be safe. Because like I
Mm-hmm,
remember when I was younger, I loved the same kind of clothes. I like older fashion, if that makes sense. Like
mm-hmm.
those dresses, I like those what's it called? It's like I liked looking like I came straight out of a Ren Fest, basically.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and my mom she used to call them granny clothes. She's like, you can't wear grandma clothes, but I loved them. I loved grandma clothes. I loved them, but I could never wear them.
Mm.
Now I wear them all the time. But like I was authentically myself, and while I'm sure people were absolutely picking on me, probably so, I can't see any past where they definitely weren't. Like they probably were,
Mm-hmm,
but I did not notice, nor did I care.
mm-hmm,
Um, and they look back on me thinking that girl was actually kind of funny.
mm-hmm.
So make sure that you just like, even if if it feels like your kid is about to do something that some kids might be like, let's pick on her or let's pick on him. Be a safe space for your kid.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody is picking on your kid for an autistic trait that they have, that means they're being ableist.
Well, I was
They're
gonna
making
say
fun.
they're doing the wrong thing, not you.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's their beef. That's a problem that they need to be addressed for. That
Right.
picking on somebody specifically because of something that they do because of their autism
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
is
terrible.
bad.
It's very bad. Well, and I also think that Lakin, even if somebody never made a mistake in their life and they were perfect and they did all the things that, quote unquote, are socially acceptable or whatever, people will still find reasons to make fun of people about all sorts of things.
Oh, yeah.
And so, even if you do try to protect your child from bullying, you're probably not going to protect them from bullying. So,
Yeah.
if you're allowing them to be more authentic, and this is exactly what I said in a parent talk I had, in January, just letting kids be kids. And, we don't have to wear those clothes. We don't have to have that kind of hair. We don't have to wear that makeup. The child does. And if they choose that, then that's okay. Let them have that autonomy to choose that. So I appreciate you saying that, because coming from a young person's mouth, it just means even more, because I can say that as an old person, and maybe it doesn't have as much truth to a young person, but I love that you say that. So, well, thank you so much for joining me today. And I wish you very much luck, and everyone follow Laiken, because you're going to love her artwork, and then you can see what she's doing next in her life. Thank you.
Can't wait for you to see my boy on your YouTube channel. They don't even know what he is.
Oh, that's right. Now say again what kind of animal he is.
Well, now I kind of want to leave it up to the now.
Oh, that's right. They're going to have to go to the YouTube channel to see. Okay, that's perfect. I love it. Okay, go to the YouTube.
And I'll get a guess in the chat.
That's right. See everyone later. Talk to you soon.